Hello, thank you for attending. My name is Armin Stroß-Radschinski and I'm an industrial designer, information architect, and working with Plone since over 12 years. I'm talking about the use case of orchestrating digital experiences and data during events in locations. My definition of location experience is very emotional, because if you enter an event like this conference, an important part of the experience is how do you find the informations, how do you find the locations, and all these informations need to be orchestrated and organized in advance, and it's very time consuming. So I was involved in the design of this conference, and we had to put all these schedules and other stuff together, and the purpose of the talk is not to show you an existing solution for that. We did a lot of the stuff with not an existing automated solution, but there is a very interesting opportunity to use Plone for that. And I want to show what are the possibilities if you have all your assets inside of Plone, and if you have an application, for example, at an organization with recurring events, that you may show a lot of more information in a proper way. So when you tell a story, it's often important to have a context for a story. So if you need, for example, a branding, or you have something like the name of a conference, you want to bind the information to all these things, and then you have to collect all the assets in advance. And the event organizing is often, most of the time, bound to a particular building. In this case, we had different buildings, so you had to travel between those locations. Sometimes it's a business application, sometimes it's more entertaining stuff, so you have in the evening a party or something else. And you need to connect all these different things. And you expect, as a visitor, it would be cool that you have a seamless digital experience. You have it on your digital mobile device. If you are on the location, you find information in a printed form. Maybe you are not online, you cannot reach the digital stuff. You want to have a ticket, for example, these badges that show your name to someone else. If they are not properly done, maybe they contain not every information, or you need a corrected version, you need a local service to reprint your badge, and so on. Beyond the mobile devices, we have these timeline before an event and after an event, and there are the social medias, and you have to inject the information into the social media. And this is also very time consuming. You maybe know a service like Buffer that tries to schedule the publication of this stuff, because if you're involved yourself, you cannot Twitter always while you're on the stage or you're hanging around with the organizer team. And there's digital signage, you need all these different things. It's very popular to use external services for that. For example, for this conference, we used Eventbrite for the ticketing and a guidebook for the app, but you have to fill these services with data. So you have in advance to work with the schedules, then you have to publish them, then there is a change to the schedules, and every possible media has to be adjusted or updated. And this is difficult if you do that by hand. Maybe these services have an API, but it's completely stupid not to use scripting to address those APIs. If you have enough time in advance and you have recurring events inside your company, for example, it makes sense to automate this process. Even on your side, even if these services provide an API, so you're not bound to them. You can switch the service for the next event, or on different, depending on different things. So what I like to use is the word orchestrating. So you have all these different instruments and you need to put them on a stage and you adjust the timing. You have to set starting dates. You have to coordinate the production. You have different people that need access to the content, permissions and so on. This is exactly what you can do with Plone. And these things need to be or can be really a pain if you do it in a conventional way, but if you plan it in a proper way, it can be very interesting. So the multi-channel publication is something we have for a long time also in the print industry. So you have assets, text, material, images and so on, and you need transformations to transform them into different media, which is very common for mobile devices and regular desktop screens. But now we have also the challenge of these big screens coming up. 8K monitors are coming and you can really do crazy things with them. And if you can automate this transformation inside of your system, you can save a lot of time and concentrate on the quality. So another point is that you need to keep your assets under control. Imagine you have all these data on these external services and there is any kind of shutdown. A service is not available. We had this with Twitter recently, today or something like that. There was a region in the US where Twitter was not reachable. And in this case, you are completely out of service. And if you have all the assets inside of your system and just distribute to those services, you can react quite flexible in such an emergency. Computers are very good for automation. So most of the time people use the word IT for information technology, and I like to have the word business automation for that, because this is what you do every day, and you just don't have this information, but the interesting thing is what you do with the information, and you can really save a lot of lifetime and focus on other stuff. Then the term smart is overused from my point of view. These things are often not smart. They are as smart as the people that create those applications. And if you are able to control a part of this for your own organization, you can be much better adjusted and can smart yourself. So if you have an idea, for example with Plone, you can use the easy configuration possibilities to just create from scratch something without programming, just by configuring certain areas in the system and find something very simple. Okay, Plone can hold a lot of different data types. You can, without any planning, you have this object-oriented storage, and you can connect to various services using Python scripting. For example, you can use these form generation tools like Plone FormGen or now Collective Easy Form, and then collect the stuff from a form and then connect to external services and feed them using Python scripts. And Plone is providing a very good base for that. You can have a system with a high availability. You can control how available it will be. You have a long-term support, so you can expect to run this system over a long time. And Python can be connected with the standard library to almost everything. You can attach serial devices. You can communicate over all kinds of protocols and add something if you need it. And on top of Plone, there is the Quave intranet solution, and this adds features you normally don't find in Plone. So you can have workspaces and discussions related to documents. For example, there is a certain talk and you need to communicate with a speaker about the preparation, or something is missing, or stuff like that. So you have a local timeline of chat or information related to this particular document. And this is very interesting to use this as an extension beyond Plone and manage the whole intranet communication over Quave instead of using cloud services, especially if you have any security challenges that don't allow to use these cloud services. So you keep everything under control in your organization. We already saw that before. You can, these are examples well known from this conference. So we had a lot of things to prepare and coordinate. There were printed folders. There was the digital signage for the big monitor in the food area, which is completely different to the schedules which are on the easels in front of the rooms, because the easels in front of the rooms are organized all days for this room, and the other one took the information all rooms for this day. So it's very boring to manually adjust this content in these different locations. You can make mistakes. You may have found some of them also on the website. And on the right side you have this printed overview over the whole conference. There are floor plans, and there is also potential to go further. You have video splash screens. When the video starts, you need to insert the names of the speaker, the title, and so on. Everything has to be done by hand. The app has to be filled. The ticketing service needs to be connected to the batch printing, and so on. We have today a lot of very interesting display devices. You can run very easily a modern browser on them, and then you can use all these things you know as a web developer: HTML5, CSS, JavaScript. 20 years ago, you needed very specialized applications that directly address the graphics card to have smooth transitions, and today you have so smooth animations in the browsers. It's very nice and slick, and you can work with 3D geometry files. You can turn 3D models with WebGL. It's very cool. You can work with audio, video. We saw the virtual reality application with the player Manabu was showing, and you can even publish it on a cardboard device. So that everybody, even not owning a virtual reality goggle, can view it on a location, and so on. There's a lot of things coming, and you can also connect to these TV sticks, Apple TVs, and so on, if you are aware of them and you are able to address them. So digital signage, here is the example from the food area of the Nerd Center, which is run by PowerPoint. So they just accept a PowerPoint file for that, and it's not an issue for me. I just render out a PowerPoint file for that, and it's at the end based all on the same stuff. And in this case, it was not version automation because we use it one time, but for Microsoft maybe it's useful to have that automated. So there are LED walls, info columns in the entry area, so it would have been nice to have something in the entry area downstairs, but it was not possible for this event. Then you have these event timelines. They are composing. I already talked about these different corresponding procedures between different layouts of the stuff, and also follow up. For example, for the survey we see later the slide for, there's also a relation between the survey and the talk, and so on. The assets also allow that you can do a proper usage tracking, so you know where your information is stored everywhere. You have these assets, and then you have links to the possible locations where the information is used. And you can also keep track of licenses, which is maybe difficult if you need, for example, permissions for a certain photo, and you have to pay if you misuse them. It's not in the professional environments. It's not always suitable that you work with Creative Commons licenses, which made it quite easy. And you also need to have revisions of images. So if you change over time something because of a copyright violation, you have to keep track at which moment in time it was removed or something similar. So this is in fact not a lie. The future is really the browser. We get rid of this proprietary Flash stuff and so on. We can do almost everything there, and HTML5 and JavaScript is really enough to do proper signage, and even the printed stuff is using this technology, because if you have a proper print CSS, you can in fact generate all these printed materials, or some of these printed materials, by just opening the HTML file using a WebKit-based browser and render into a PDF file. And then you can generate them without using expensive solutions from, for example, from Adobe. InDesign Server can do that, but it's very expensive. Years ago, you spent $25,000 just for the license without having anything done. And Quave can be, as an intranet solution, also a good starting point. So you put all the documentation about using these things into your intranet. So people are looking in the search for maybe how do I organize an event, how do I generate a folder with a map of our floor plan, and you just search there, and then you find the products and you get an entry point, and you can start working with these files, and you have a seamless digital experience. You go there, you do the work there, and you get the results, and then you are done. Yes, you don't have to switch the system, and you can use, for example, Diazo to even make everything look, give everything the same look in your corporate design, like you need. Do we have some time left?
I think we're 2 minutes over.
So okay.
We have a break now.
Okay, I just had some more information about the triggers. It's very interesting how to trigger these things. They can be triggered by a user or by agents programmatically. You have these timelines before the conference and after the conference, because these follow-up things are often an issue. The people are exhausted after an event, and if you have everything automated in advance, you can issue press releases and other stuff without taking so much time. And there are also events that can be triggered, that has to be triggered, and needs to be queued for later action. So if you want to look up statistics, for example, how the event was followed in the media and create a press release, and you miss to track that, it's not a good idea. Lawrence was today talking about loose coupling. He's doing something not directly similar, but I think important thing for Netflix, where they also have different services to connect. And loose coupling offers that you don't put all these functionality direct in your system. You use these external services, but you integrate them, and so Diazo can be the bracket to take everything or bind it together. And for application messaging, we have a lot of interesting thing in Zope. So you have these event publishers if someone is doing something in the system, and you can create just another different package which is just listening. And if these events are issued, it just takes the related action. So that's it. Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I got a couple. So first, when you're working with like sending out messages to social media,
Yeah.
you have Twitter, you got your 140 characters plus a photo, or
Yeah.
Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
So do you store all that information inside of your Plone app, and then and then when you want to actually schedule it or do it at an actual live thing, have you already like set up the accounts and obviously you need to set up the accounts, but then how do you actually get the messages out to all those without having to go to each one of those services?
You know, there are services like Buffer, for example, that allow to create those messages in advance and then issue them in a scheduled manner. So
that's still that's like something outside of Plone then.
Yes, it's outside of Plone,
okay.
but the thing is, Buffer can do that, but you have to also match the wording there with other things that are not reachable by Buffer.
Right.
So you start in your own system, write content. For example, you store these messages as objects in a folder, and you can add with the dexterity content type very easy all the necessary information you need for Buffer, for example, and then from there you fill Buffer. Okay. Yes, and the actual thing, for example, the same is with MailChimp. You don't want to write mail templates for all these clients, yes? But if you always use just these services like MailChimp and you want to look 1 year later or what kind of wording we used or keep track of all these things, you have to go back to those services. You have to use the UI and find something. It's boring. And if you already have the information in your system before you issue it there, you just look at it internally. You're completely independent. Okay. And even if the service is shut down, you find everything.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you do is like you have you ahead of time figure out what your message is going to be.
Yeah.
And then in the second step, you have some kind of like this, we'll take this message and somehow squeeze it in 140 characters for it.
Yes, and this is just a thing. For example, there was something in the training. You can write just special widgets, upload an image. If it's too small, it's rejected. If the message is too long, it's rejected. Yeah. Or you can save it and put it into a workflow, but it pushes it back on your desk until the message fits the stuff. It depends on what you need, and you can adjust these workflows very easy in Plone.
And my other question was, you know, I just have to say that the work that has been done for the Plone conference is amazing, considering the size of it. It's really phenomenal. So I wanted to commend you on that, and then I was like, how could we actually take a look at this and see what's been done?
What I said in advance, it's just a proof not proof of concept, just to show the opportunities what you can do. We didn't use that actually for this conference. So, but what I said, it's interesting if you have always the same location. For example, for the owner of the location, for Microsoft, if they schedule the stuff. So I had to email the PowerPoint as a file.